Water splashed. Nneka's eyes lingered on Amaka's body. "You're beautiful," she whispered, her voice soft yet deliberate. Before Amaka could respond, Nneka reached out, her fingers gently tracing the curve of Amaka's chest. "Have you ever had sex?" she asked, her tone curious yet bold, her eyes locking with Amaka's. Amaka, overwhelmed, shook her head. Nneka smiled knowingly, her fingers slowly exploring further as she leaned in to kiss Amaka. The warmth of her touch sent a wave of unfamiliar pleasure through Amaka, a feeling she had never experienced before. Nneka's hands roamed freely, exploring Amaka's body as if testing the boundaries. Amaka's breath quickened, her initial hesitation fading into a strange desire she couldn't explain. For the first time in her life, she felt wanted, her body responding in ways that left her both confused and exhilarated. The scholarship to Royal Crest Academy was a dream come true for Amaka. She was an intelligent and ambitious girl who had always excelled academically, but life at the academy wasn't as glamorous as she had imagined. Amaka was plump, and her weight became a source of cruel amusement for some of the girls at the school. Among her tormentors was Linda, a girl from an influential family who made it her mission to make Amaka's life miserable. It began with subtle jabs, like calling her names in the hallways or giggling whenever she passed by. Amaka tried her best to ignore it, finding solace in her best friend, Eno, who had always been her rock. Eno was her defender, her partner in everything. Together, they had promised to conquer the challenges of Royal Crest Academy. But things began to change when Eno found a new group of friends, girls who were trendy, popular, and unapologetically mean. "Amaka, you need to stop clinging to me," Eno said one day. "I have new friends now. Maybe you should try to fit in too." Amaka felt her heart sink. Eno's departure left her exposed and vulnerable. Without Eno by her side, Linda saw her chance to turn up the bullying. One afternoon, Amaka was walking to class when Linda and her crew cornered her. "Still dreaming about being the best in school, huh?" Linda sneered. "Too bad brains don't make you prettier." The girls erupted into laughter. Amaka kept her head down, gripping her books tightly, but the words stung. The harassment grew worse over time. Linda poured water on Amaka's books during lunch, tripped her in the hallways, and spread rumors that Amaka had cheated on a recent test. The weight of it all crushed Amaka's spirit. She stopped participating in class and started hiding in the library during lunch breaks to avoid confrontation. One day, while she was wiping away tears in the empty bathroom, she heard someone enter. She froze, hoping they would leave, but instead, the girl approached her. "Amaka, what's going on?" The voice was soft and kind. Amaka looked up to see Nneka, one of the most respected students in the school. She was graceful, confident, and always treated everyone with kindness. Amaka hesitated but eventually poured out her heart. Nneka listened intently, her face darkening with anger at the details. "This has to stop," Nneka said firmly. "You deserve better than this." True to her word, Nneka took action. With the help of the school counselor, she encouraged Amaka to report the bullying. Linda's actions were exposed, and the school took swift measures to ensure she faced the consequences. She was suspended, and her parents were informed. For the first time in a long while, Amaka felt a glimmer of hope. Nneka became her mentor, guiding her through the challenges of school life and teaching her how to rebuild her confidence. After the incident, Nneka invited Amaka to stay in her private hostel outside the school campus. The hostel was luxurious, far beyond anything Amaka had ever seen. The rooms were spacious, beautifully decorated, and offered a sense of safety and comfort that she hadn't felt in weeks. "Stay here with me," Nneka said gently. "No one will dare touch you again." Amaka hesitated, her heart conflicted. The offer was tempting, but she didn't want to feel like she was running away from her challenges. "Thank you so much, Nneka," but I think I need to face this, she said softly. Your kindness means everything to me, but I'll be okay. I'll stay in the school hostel. Nneka smiled, her eyes filled with admiration. That's brave of you, Amaka, but remember, I'm always here for you. You're not alone anymore. Amaka returned to the school hostel with a renewed sense of strength. Amaka shyly thought about Nneka's request to move into her hostel. Nneka had been kind to her, giving her a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in ages. From snacks and ironed clothes to comforting words, Nneka seemed to genuinely care. Amaka decided she wanted to make Nneka happy too. After a long pause, she agreed, and the following weekend, she packed her belongings and moved in. The moment she entered Nneka's hostel room, Amaka was stunned by how luxurious it was. The polished floors, soft beds, and serene atmosphere were a stark contrast to the noisy and cramped school hostel she was used to. Only 4 girls lived there, and Nneka introduced her warmly to her roommates, who were just as confident and friendly. They joked around and shared snacks, quickly making Amaka feel like part of the group. "Welcome home," Nneka said with a smile as she showed Amaka her bunk bed. "The top bunk is yours." As Amaka settled in, she couldn't help but notice something unusual about the girls' behavior. They seemed completely comfortable walking around the room naked, chatting and laughing, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Amaka, on the other hand, felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. She sat on her bed, clutching her towel tightly around her body, unable to move. "What's wrong, Amaka?" Nneka asked, noticing her unease. I'm not used to this," Amaka stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't just walk around like that." One of the roommates chuckled, and Nneka grinned. "That's how we roll here," Nneka said jokingly, her tone lighthearted. "You'll get used to it. Trust me." Amaka gave a shy smile, but remained wrapped in her towel. She was hyper-aware of her plump figure, and couldn't imagine exposing herself so freely like the others. Despite Nneka's reassuring words, she felt out of place. "It's okay. Take your time," Nneka said gently, sensing her discomfort. "No one's going to force you to do anything. Just be yourself." That night, Amaka slept soundly for the first time in weeks. The quiet of the hostel and the warmth of Nneka's kindness made her feel safe. But as the days turned into nights, she began noticing strange things. Almost every night, Nneka would wake her up, asking her to climb down and sleep in her bed. At first, Amaka thought it was harmless. Nneka claimed to have nightmares and didn't want to sleep alone. Amaka hesitated at first, but Nneka's worried face softened her resolve, and she would join her. As they lay together, Amaka felt Nneka's warmth and how protective she was. It comforted her, but something felt different. Nneka's affection was intense. She often stroked Amaka's hair or held her tightly, whispering things like, "I'm so glad you're here with me." Amaka didn't know how to respond, so she stayed quiet. But one night, something unusual happened. Amaka woke up to find Nneka quietly rummaging through her wardrobe. She pulled out a long cucumber, glanced around to ensure no one was watching, and disappeared into the bathroom. Amaka's curiosity piqued, but she was too shy to ask about it. The nights grew stranger when she started noticing the other roommates making odd noises in their bunks, muffled giggles and whispers that made Amaka's cheeks burn with embarrassment. She wanted to ask what was going on, but she felt too out of place to say anything. One evening, while they were chatting under a tree on campus, Amaka mustered up the courage to ask Nneka about her views on relationships. "Nneka, have you ever liked a man?" she asked hesitantly. Nneka's face darkened instantly. "I hate men," she said bluntly, her voice colder than Amaka had ever heard. "They're nothing but trouble." Amaka blinked, unsure of what to say. "But why?" she ventured carefully. Nneka hesitated, her jaw tightening. "It's nothing," she said sharply. but her eyes betrayed a storm of emotions. I don't talk about my father either, so don't ask. Amaka felt a pang of sympathy but didn't push further. She realized there were layers to Nneka she hadn't uncovered yet, painful secrets that Nneka carried silently. As much as Amaka wanted to know more, she respected her boundaries. As the days passed, Amaka started noticing changes in Nneka's behavior. During lectures, Amaka would occasionally glance over and catch Nneka staring at her. It wasn't just a casual look. It was intense, almost as if Nneka was studying her every move. But what puzzled Amaka even more was how Nneka's face twisted whenever a guy approached her. One day after class, a classmate named Nneka came over to ask Amaka a question about an assignment. They were chatting casually when Amaka noticed Nneka sitting a few seats away, her arms crossed tightly, her face stormy. Later, when Amaka tried to talk to her, Nneka avoided her completely. "Nneka, are you okay?" Amaka asked, concerned. Nneka gave a curt nod, but refused to meet her gaze. "I'm fine," she replied coldly, brushing past her. This strange behavior continued for days. Whenever a guy spoke to Amaka, Nneka's mood would sour. She would refuse to talk to Amaka afterward, leaving her feeling confused and hurt. Amaka began questioning whether she had done something wrong. She felt like a burden, like she was no longer needed in Nneka's life. One evening, after much thought, Amaka decided to leave Nneka's hostel and return to her old one. Packing her belongings, she felt a pang of sadness, but convinced herself it was for the best. As she was about to leave, Nneka walked in. "Amaka, where are you going?" Nneka asked, her voice tinged with panic. I think it's better if I move back to my hostel," Amaka said quietly, avoiding her eyes. "I don't think you need me here anymore." Nneka's expression softened, and for the first time in days, her cold demeanor melted away. "That's not true," she said, stepping closer. "You're important to me, Amaka. She hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I'm sorry if I've been acting strange." Before Amaka could respond, Nneka reached into her wardrobe and pulled out a gorgeous dress. It was a sleek, midnight blue gown with intricate beading that shimmered in the light. "I got this for you," Nneka said, handing it to her. "For the freshers' party. I want you to look stunning." Amaka stared at the dress, her heart warming at the gesture. "Nneka, Thank you," she said, her voice trembling. The night of the party, Amaka wore the dress, and it fit her perfectly. She felt beautiful and confident as she arrived at the event with Nneka by her side. The hall was alive with music, lights, and laughter. As they mingled, Amaka couldn't help but notice how protective Nneka seemed. She stayed close, her eyes scanning the crowd as if guarding Amaka from some unseen threat. That evening, as Amaka prepared to take her bath, Nneka followed her to the bathroom, insisting on joining in. Amaka hesitated but reluctantly allowed her. Inside, as the water splashed, Nneka's eyes lingered on Amaka's body. "You're beautiful," she whispered, her voice soft yet deliberate. Before Amaka could respond, Nneka reached out, her fingers gently tracing the curve of Amaka's chest. "Have you ever had sex?" she asked, her tone curious yet bold, her eyes locking with Amaka's. Amaka, overwhelmed, shook her head. Nneka smiled knowingly, her fingers slowly exploring further as she leaned in to kiss Amaka. The warmth of her touch sent a wave of unfamiliar pleasure through Amaka, a feeling she had never experienced before. Nneka's hands roamed freely, exploring Amaka's body as if testing the boundaries. Amaka's breath quickened, her initial hesitation fading into a strange desire she couldn't explain. For the first time in her life, she felt wanted, her body responding in ways that left her both confused and exhilarated. She didn't want Nneka to stop, despite the tiny voice in her mind telling her this wasn't right. When it was over, Nneka whispered, "I want you to be my girlfriend, Amaka. Say yes." Her voice was soft, almost pleading, but it carried an undertone of certainty, as if she already knew the answer. Amaka remained silent, her emotions a storm of confusion and curiosity. That night, lying in her bed, Amaka stared at the ceiling, her thoughts racing. Nneka's touch still lingered on her skin, and her words echoed in her mind. She had never felt this way before, so alive yet so unsure. But as the hostel lights flickered and a strange chill passed through the room, Amaka couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something far more complicated than she could imagine. To be continued,